I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Friday, April the 25th, 2014. U.S. President Barack Obama addressed the current situation between Israel and the Palestinians today regarding peace negotiations, calling the recent Palestinian unity deal an unhelpful step, and also saying that tough political will was needed from both sides to make some very tough decisions. He also said there may come a time when both sides need to take a pause from peace talks and look at the alternatives. The president's comments, which he made during a joint press conference in Seoul with the president of South Korea, follows the announcement from Fatah and Hamas that they would be forming a unity government. Obama said in his statements today that the fact that recently President Abbas took the unhelpful step of rejoining talks with Hamas is just one of a series of choices that both Israel and the Palestinians have made, which are not conducive to solving this crisis. The president did say that peace was still in the interest of both parties and that the United States is not giving up in its efforts. Obama said, realistically, there is one door, and that is the two parties getting together to make some very difficult compromises. He said, we will continue to encourage them to walk through that door. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who has been leading the peace efforts, reiterated his commitment to the peace process. He said yesterday, we will never give up our hope or our commitment for the possibilities of peace. We believe it is the only way to go, but right now, obviously, it's at a very difficult point, and the leaders themselves have to make decisions. It's up to them. Following the Fatah-Hamas reconciliation, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement last night that Israel was suspending negotiations with the Palestinians over their pact with Hamas. Netanyahu said, instead of choosing peace, Abu Mazen, referring to Abbas, formed an alliance with a murderous terrorist organization that calls for Israel's destruction. The Prime Minister added that Hamas has fired more than 10,000 missiles and rockets on Israel and has never stopped for a moment its terror actions against the country. He also said that Israel would be there in the future if they have a partner that is committed to peace. In an interview last night with MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell, Netanyahu reiterated his position. When asked by Mitchell if there was anything Hamas could do that would allow for Israel to consider sitting down with a Palestinian government that included the terror group, Netanyahu answered,
well, Hamas could stop being Hamas. Hamas could tear up its covenant that calls not only for the annihilation of Israel, but for the murder of Jews worldwide.
Meanwhile, Ynet reports that a United Nations press release claimed that PA President Abbas spoke to UN representatives yesterday, namely to UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Robert Serry, and assured him that the unity government with Hamas would abide by principles of nonviolence and recognition of the State of Israel, as agreed upon by Israel and the PLO at the Oslo Accords in 1993. And Jewish organizations here in the U.S. continue to weigh in on the Palestinian call for unity, saying it is a clear sign that the Palestinians are not committed to peace. World Jewish Congress President Ronald Lauder told the Jerusalem Post yesterday that this is one of the times when people realize what's really happening and there is no question about it. He said, how can Israel negotiate with an organization that wants its destruction? B'nai B'rith International said the move by the rival Palestinian factions shows once again that the Palestinians are less interested in peace than in pursuing the conflict with Israel, and that signing the unity deal is a clear statement that, quote, the PA would sooner accommodate terrorists than forge peace with Israel. They said it also raises doubt on whether the PA is really committed to negotiations with Israel. B'nai B'rith said, how could bringing Hamas into the fold improve the state of peace talks, when from its inception, Hamas has maintained an incessant campaign of terror and refused to recognize Israel's right to exist. The IDF was once again targeted near Israel's border fence with Gaza. Last night, an explosive device was detonated near the northern border, where an IDF unit was conducting routine security operations. No one was injured in the attack. IDF forces fired back at the source of the blast. Earlier in the day yesterday, the IDF uncovered 2 bombs that had been planted along the southern Gaza border. That morning, as we reported to you, a mortar shell was fired at an IDF unit along the southern Gaza border. No injuries were reported there either. The Anti-Defamation League has expressed its concern over fake eviction notices that were placed under the doors of students in an NYU residence hall. According to a report in the New York Post, the notices handed out by NYU's Students for Justice in Palestine read, "We regret to inform you that your suite is scheduled for demolition in 3 days," in an effort to copy notices that the IDF hands out to warn Palestinian residents of homes that are going to be demolished, which it does in the event of serious security concerns or of homes that are illegally built. The NYU notices claim that, quote, Palestinian homes are destroyed as part of the State of Israel's ongoing attempts to ethnically cleanse the region. ADL New York Regional Board Chair Greg Mashberg and ADL New York Regional Director Evan Bernstein issued a statement saying that mock eviction notices are a disturbing tactic designed to silence and intimidate pro-Israel advocates on campuses around the country rather than promote meaningful dialogue. They said that while students have a right to express themselves on campus, targeting students in their dorms is an unsettling intrusion that fosters a hostile environment on campus rather than one that allows for constructive dialogue. NYU spokesman John Beckman said the school was looking into the incident. He told the New York Post that the mock notices were not an invitation to thoughtful, open discussion, saying, quote, "It is disappointingly inconsistent with standards we expect to prevail in a scholarly community." A group of artists will gather next week at the United Nations to talk about creative ways to educate about the Holocaust. The event is organized by the UN's Department of Public Information's Holocaust and the UN Outreach Program in partnership with the Permanent Mission of Israel to the United Nations, as well as with the World Jewish Congress. A multimedia program will be presented on April the 28th, the day after the observance of Yom HaShoah, or Holocaust Remembrance Day. It'll include accomplished artists in the field of dance, literature, film, and music. Panelists will include choreographer Stephen Mills of Ballet Austin, Israeli author Nava Semel, Professor Olga Gershenson of the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and Dr. Shirley Gilbert of World Art. Opening remarks at the ceremony will be given by UN Undersecretary General for Communications and Public Information Peter Lonsky-Tiefenthal, Israeli Ambassador to the UN Ron Prosor, and World Jewish Congress President Ronald Lauder. And turning to our Shalom TV programming, live Shabbat services are coming up at 6 o'clock from New York City's Central Synagogue. And looking ahead this weekend, special programming for Yom HaShoah begins on the eve of the Remembrance Day, Saturday night, April the 26th, into Sunday, April the 27th. Some special programs and tributes include at 4 o'clock on Sunday, a solemn hour of reflection from last year's Yom HaShoah service at the Fifth Avenue Synagogue in New York City, which features Holocaust survivor Olga Vilko and Buchenwald liberator Rick Carrier. Also, a Yom HaShoah commemoration service from Temple Shalom in Greenwich, Connecticut airs Sunday night at 7:30, with special guest speaker Holocaust survivor Martin Greenfield. That is followed at 8 o'clock by New Jewish Cinema, featuring Israeli director David Fisher, who discusses the third and final film in his family trilogy, 6,000,001, in which he and his siblings travel to Austria to retrace the steps of their father, who survived the Holocaust. That's with host Judy Gelman-Myers. You can go to shalomtv.com for more special programming information. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Friday, April the 25th, 2014. I'm Teisha Bader. Shabbat Shalom.